Hello folks, my name is Chris Kreitline and I'm a celestial navigation instructor for Globus Horizon. I'd like to present to you another video. However, this one is not on celestial navigation. This one is on how to trim your sailboat to deal with weather helm. Let me relate a little story. When I first got into sailing, I was going to take my Cape Dory 30 cutter from Pensacola along the coast over to Mobile Bay by myself, all alone. A high pressure front was approaching the area, and so we had a very strong north wind. I had up all sails and I was making pretty good speed, and I engaged the auto helm, but the auto helm kept kicking offline. It could not handle it. There was so much pressure on the wheel. It exceeded what the autopilot could handle. So I ended up hand steering all the way to Mobile. And I considered reefing the mainsail, but I was making such good speed, I decided not to and just hand steered the boat. I was new to sailing, inexperienced, and I didn't know what else to do other than sit there tugging on the wheel all the way. Well, since that experience, I've done a lot of investigation and have learned some tricks that I use now so that I never have to do that again. And I'd like to share those with you on a video presentation. So sit back, relax, and let me get into it. Okay, like I said, I'm Chris Kreitline, Celestial Navigation Instructor with Globus Horizon. This presentation is on weather helm and strategies for reducing weather helm in a cruising sailboat. Now on my Cape Dory, this is the original Traveler that came with the boat. You'll see the Traveler car right here, and then over here is a stop with a little rubber pull on it. The other one broke and was gone, but that's how the boat came to me. I took that whole arrangement off and shipped it to a company called Gar Hour out in California, and they installed and sent this back to me, my new Traveler. And it was beautiful. I loved it. Now, why this briefing? Well, I believe a well-functioning Traveler is a much underappreciated tool for adjusting sailboat trim. A well-trimmed sailboat should be able to maintain a set heading. At least that's what people tell me, and that's what I read in books. Joshua Slocum did it in his boat. He trimmed up his boat and went below to read a book while it sailed itself. And I don't think people really appreciate a Traveler for what it can do for you. That's why I say they're somewhat underappreciated. Now, this is a Traveler on a sailboat, and this is the kind that I think we all should have. It's got pulleys at either end that give you a lot of purchase on being able to move the Traveler car even when the sail is loaded. But let's look at a couple others. Now, here's a very small Traveler track. There's not a lot of adjustment on this boat, so I hope that it trims very easily and doesn't have a lot of weather helm. Look at this. This is a Hunter sailboat. Look how small. This is a Hunter 31 or 32 foot sailboat. And look at that. What I would consider is an overly small Traveler track for the car to run on. Not a lot of adjustment there. Maybe the boat trims out real well. Maybe it doesn't need a bigger one. I don't know. But that just looks awfully small. Now here is another sailboat with what I had on my Cape Dory. You'll see here the Traveler car in the middle with the two pull stops on either side. Now when that sail is fully loaded and you're trying to pop up that thing and move this slide over, that's dangerous, boy. That car is going to come, screaming across the track and smash your fingers. So I just can't see those. I don't understand them. Not an easy way to adjust the position of that Traveler car. That in my opinion, is just outright dangerous. And therefore, people are not inclined to use it, I think. Here's an interesting one. This is a $400,000 Beneteau Oceanus 55. Look at this. Look at this attachment point on the arch. There is no track. There is no traveler car. That thing is attached right there on the arc. This is a later model of the same boat. They've got two, one on either side, attached to the boom. But once again, there's no track, no traveler car, not a lot of adjustment there. Here's a picture of it out sailing. You can't see it, but the lines go, the main sheet goes from the end of the boom to the middle of that arch. No adjustment. Maybe they know something I don't. Maybe this boat doesn't need it. I'm not a naval architect or engineer that can answer that question. Here's a boat from the other side. Once again, here's that main sheet going to that attachment point in the middle of the... I just don't get it. I don't get it. Maybe the boat is so well designed they never have weather helm. Now, what is weather helm? Well, it's the tendency of the sailboat to turn on its own due to unbalanced pressures on the sails, hull, and rudder. There are two types, basically, windward helm and leeward helm. Weather helm requires constant counter pressure. These are some notes that I think we all should be aware of. Weather helm requires constant counter pressure, either from a helmsman or auto helm, to maintain a constant heading. You let go of the wheel, the boat's going to wander off. A slight windward helm, as I mentioned, that's one of them, is desirable. That is the tendency to turn the boat into the wind. And in doing that, the boat may stop all headway. For example, you're steering the boat and you fall overboard. Well, if it's got a little windward helm, it'll turn into the wind and stop, and hopefully you can get back aboard. Leeward helm, the other one, is more dangerous and should be avoided, because that turns your boat downwind, and that can lead to an unintentional jibe with all the dangers associated with that. So you want to avoid that at all costs. Now, the necessity of using the rudder to counteract weather helm slows down the sailboat. If you have to crank in 5, 10, 15 degrees of rudder to maintain a heading, you're dragging that rudder through the water, and that is going to slow you down. So these are things to consider about weather helm. Now, here's a graphic of a sailboat. The jib is attached at the bow and at a car here. The mainsail is attached at the mast and back here at some point, hopefully on a traveler track. Now, the jib has what I call pull pressure points, A and B. This is where it's attached to the boat. The wind pushes on the jib pulls the boat to leeward. The point B is going to be X% of the pressure at point A. But the addition of A and B is the total pressure that the sail is applying to the boat. That's the total pressure. And what's interesting here is that point A is on the bow of the boat and point B is well aft of the mast. So it's divided between the front part of the boat and the aft part of the boat. Now, the total jib pressure wants to pull the bow to leeward. However, because the pressure points are positioned one forward and one aft, it's generally not that great. Now let's look at the mainsail, which is a different situation. Here we have point C and point D, which are the pull pressure points on the boat. D down here is going to be Y% times C. C plus D is the total pull pressure exerted by the mainsail to leeward. Note here that both pull pressure points are aft of the mainmast. Ignore the word boom here, that's supposed to be mast. Both of these points are aft of the mast. They're not split, one forward and one aft as on the jib. So these are aft of the mast and aft of the center of effort on the boat. Consequently, you're going to have a pretty strong pull here of the boat to leeward in the back half of the boat. At the same time, you're going to have some twisting motion wanting to turn the bow to windward. And that's what happens. The total pressure from the mainsail twists the stern to leeward and the bow to windward. The bottom line, on an unbalanced sailboat flying with both jib and mainsail, it will generally want to turn into the wind if left unattended, because the pulling pressure on the points behind the boom are stronger than that exerted by the jib. Generally speaking, of course. Now let me mention here two rudder types. One is a balanced rudder with the rudder post right in the middle of the rudder. Some rudder forward and some rudder aft, it's in the middle. And here the unbalanced rudder, where the rudder post is on the leading edge of the rudder. Now here we have a balanced rudder flowing through the water, flowing down on either side. When the helmsman turns the rudder, of course he's going to get water pressure here on the back half trailing edge of the rudder. But he's also going to get some water pressure forward of the rudder post. And that's going to act to help him to actually turn the rudder with a slight effort here, in this case to starboard. Okay, he's going to get pressure up there that helps him turn the rudder. That's why it's called a balanced rudder. On an unbalanced rudder, once again, we have the water flowing by the rudder with the rudder post on the leading edge of the rudder. When the helmsman turns the rudder, he's pressing against all of that water pressure. Nothing's helping him turn that rudder. Now, as a consequence of this, the helmsman with an unbalanced rudder is going to feel weather helm effects more intensely. He's not going to get any assist from the water on the front edge of the rudder as in a balanced rudder. Well, a helmsman with a balanced rudder may not know the full extent of his weather helm until he lets go of the helm and the boat turns up, veers up into the wind. Now, these are my strategies for balancing the sailboat. First of all, you can depower the mainsail. Ease the main sheet, the boom will swing out to leeward, the mainsail spills air. The boom is going to lift. You may have to use the boom vang to pull it down. The sail's going to bellow out. Airflow is going to be disrupted. All of that means your speed is going to be reduced. You can reef the mainsail to help balance the sailboat. And I'm sure you know, as I've experienced, that sometimes you reef the mainsail and notice no difference at all in boat speed, which indicates, of course, that you really needed to reef. And then you can adjust the traveler, which in my opinion is the very first thing you should do, adjusting the traveler. Hopefully you've got a traveler with plenty of adjustment, a nice arch here with plenty of purchase power to control that main sheet block here and the boom with all the pressure on it from the wind. The traveler, remember, is the second mainsail pull pressure point on the boat. It's critical in producing the tendency for twisting the boat into the wind. So that's why if you can adjust it, you're going to have some rather large consequences on weather helm on the boat. I've got this little graphic here. Here's the boat center line. Here's the traveler car position somewhere along this line. Here's the intensity of your weather helm. We have the wind coming in here. This is infinity on either edge. So if you are here, you have the traveler car in the middle, and you move the traveler car towards the wind, it's going to build up even more intensity until you move it so far that it falls off. Until here, the boom is at infinity is pointed right into the wind, and you'll have no pressure at all. On the other side, if you move the traveler car downwind, you're going to reduce the intensity of the weather helm until infinity. In other words, you have the boom all the way out and the sails are luffing, or the mainsail is luffing, and then you'll have no weather helm on it at all. Okay, this graphically depicts that. Here we have the traveler in the middle of the track. We have a strong wind and we have weather helm. We move the car upwind. That's going to increase the twisting motion and try to have the boat turn into the wind. Here we move it the other way. We're going to decrease that twisting motion on the boat and hopefully balance it out so that it'll maintain a heading without too much input from the helmsman. So the bottom line, my recommendation is the first thing to do when you have weather helm is to ease the traveler car to leeward, to reduce it down to a manageable level so that at least your auto helm will stay engaged. If moving the traveler car is not enough, then it's time to reef the mainsail and take some of that pull pressure off the sailboat. If you have leeward helm, as I said, that's outright dangerous. Then what you want to do is reduce the jib to reduce that tendency for the boat to turn downwind. Okay, in conclusion, I recommend we all learn how to use the traveler to balance our sailboats. Start out sailing with the traveler car centered, and then adjust it as necessary for your weather helm. Generally speaking, that means sliding the car to leeward. If the weather helm persists, it's time to reef the mainsail. The traveler is a valuable tool. We all need to learn how to use it properly. Okay, thanks for your attention on this thing. You can contact me with any questions, comments, and most importantly, any corrections. If I've said anything here that you disagree with, that's blatantly wrong, I'd sure like to know about it. I'm still learning, as we all are. So please send me an email at sales@globazon.com. You can go to globazon.com and there's a contact page. I think my phone number is even there. You could call me or leave me a message on your comments. And like I said, any corrections, I'd really appreciate those. Okay, happy sailing, fair winds and following seas, as they say.